Howdy folks, Jambareeqi here, and in this video I'm going to be fulfilling a patron's request review of The Little Mermaid, that patron being April Cyclone. Ariel is a 16-year-old mermaid princess who loves human culture, but her father, King Triton, demands that she stops obsessing over the world of the land. When Triton finds Ariel's secret collection of human artifacts, he destroys it all in furious anger, including a statue of her crush, Prince Eric, who she recently saved from drowning. Ariel then makes a deal with the sea witch Ursula to give up her voice in trade for a human body. But there's a catch. She has to get Prince Eric to kiss her under 3 days, and if she fails this quest, she will belong to Ursula. So, with help from her animal friends, Ariel must win the affections of the prince in order to stay on land. For quite some time, I had a very lukewarm relationship with this film. I didn't love it, but I also didn't hate it. Every time I finished watching it, I'd say to myself, well, that was nice. Recently though, I've started to see what makes The Little Mermaid so charming, as I began noticing things that I newly admired or had been underappreciating all this time. On the surface, it's a simple story of a mermaid becoming human, but it's how it tells its story that makes it a good movie. Not great, but good. There's a common interpretation that this is just the tale of a teenage girl giving up her life for a man. A verdict I sternly held to myself for a while too, but I think such a viewpoint ignores certain details that prove it's more than that. Ariel has a genuine fascination towards humans that's rooted in a curiosity about the unknown. She wholeheartedly wants to learn about the human artifacts she finds.
A bandit, bulbous, snarfblat.
And it's this hobby of hers that keeps her entertained under the sea. The fact that she's also got a crush on Prince Eric is just a bonus for her interest in human society. Someone who embodies Ariel's fascination towards those on land who happens to be attractive to her. It's also important to realise that Ariel is a victim of overly disciplinary parenting. Her father refuses to let her have a say, scolds her for standing up for herself, and uses his own prejudices against humans to control her.
I set certain rules, and I expect those rules to be obeyed.
This kind of old-fashioned parenting does more harm than good. It'll actually push the child to rebel against parental wishes, because they've had their freedom of choice taken away, and acting out as their only instinct of reclaiming it. To make matters worse, Triton ends up destroying all of Ariel's artifacts as punishment, which is actually a huge red flag and a form of domestic abuse. It's no less different than a human dad destroying his daughter's boy band merchandise because he fears what their songs are teaching her. Communication is paramount in parenting. While Triton might think he's being protective, he's actually threatening his daughter, taking away her property rights, and sending a message of violence. This is what makes Ariel suddenly very vulnerable, because she's technically now not safe where she lives, and can't trust the authority figures around her. So it's no surprise that Ursula sees Ariel as easy prey, as teenagers in her position are very susceptible to predatory adults. And one could compare the sea witch to a loan shark, someone who is willing to take advantage of a naive young girl who craves freedom.
The solution to your problem is simple. The only way to get what you want is to become a human yourself.
Now yes, Triton does later express regret about his actions, but as far as Ariel knows at this point, her dad is moments away from trapping her or increasing his violence. He's not shown her any remorse or signs he'll change, so I don't blame her for leaving her sea life behind, because this is the inevitable result of overly strict parenting. At the end of the day, Ariel is a product of her world, a victim of her dad's abuse, and an easy target for Ursula's schemes. To sum up her character as a dumb, lovesick teenager really undermines the sympathetic details and implies that teenagers can't make mistakes. I mean, just look at her pure joy when she's given legs. You can tell that this is the body she's always wanted. Becoming human means way more to her than just the chance to be with her dreamy prince. It's part of who she is on the inside, and such a desire can be relatable for a lot of teenagers uncomfortable in their own skin. Speaking of the prince, can I just say how likeable Prince Eric is? He has a lovely bond with his pet dog that shows how gentle he is. He turns his nose at a statue of himself to indicate his humble nature and lack of ego. Plus, even when he thinks that Ariel isn't his dream girl, he's sympathetic enough to take her into his home, going as far as being her tour guide for his kingdom. Some have argued that Eric is too perfect, but there is a glaring flaw to him that adds a little depth to his character. You see, Eric becomes so infatuated with Ariel's singing that he forgets the value of what she did for him in the first place. He ends up chasing after her pretty voice instead of treasuring the person she really is, which leads to a wild goose chase. As good-natured as Eric is, he's quite naive to the obvious. His butler sums up his misguided direction perfectly with this line.
Eric, if I may say, far better than any dream girl is one of flesh and blood.
Now, Ariel and Eric's romance is rather fleeting. It's as short-term as they come for a film narrative. But you can tell that they recognise each other's charms. Both are also pressured by their peers to fit certain requirements, and their meeting holds resonance because of this. I do think that Ariel can come on a bit too strong at times, but teenagers are yet to control their heavy emotions. And she is capable of respecting Eric's boundaries at points. Like, there's a moment where she could kiss Eric, but he turns away, and she doesn't try to force him, even though she's clearly disappointed. I think it's also important for me to discuss the film's animal sidekicks, a trademark of many Disney animated movies. Scuttle is a very dense and egocentric seagull, but he also has a lot of love to give and just wants to feel important. While his education about human culture is woefully wrong, he does end up becoming an important member of the mermaid's team, using his flight to his advantage. Flounder is introduced as easily scared, but his loyalty to Ariel is rock solid, and all he cares about is his best friend's happiness. While he does have his moments of bravery, for the most part he's pretty passive, and he doesn't get to be his own fish much. But in terms of the story, his help and support is all that's needed. I love Sebastian. He's quite possibly the most interesting character in the film, being a crab who feels conflicted between his responsibilities to the king and caring love for the princess, making him neurotic and stuffy while also hiding a soft heart under his hard shell. You can tell that he just wants to compose music and be on his majesty's good side. Yet, getting tied up in Ariel's deal with Ursula pushes him into being a paternal figure for her on land, kind of like Mushu and Mulan. But what's a Disney animated movie without its villain? Folks, let me introduce you to Ursula, one of the best baddies ever. Ursula is a devious sea witch with the skill to charm innocent merfolk into making shady deals with her. She's based on the legendary drag queen Divine, the godfather of modern drag and star of many John Waters movies. Where do I even begin with my love for Ursula? While it does bug me that the only plus-size merperson in the film is the villain, I really adore her intense level of self-confidence. She owns her sex appeal, believes in her beauty, plus swims with a sultry elegance and sense of glamour. The way she manipulates Ariel is really engaging to watch because she's so experienced in making these deals, from knowing which insecurities to play on to how to respond to questions of doubt. This is just another working day for her, and it shows. Her minions Flotsam and Jetsam are creepily seductive eels with alien voices and sinister grins. Much like their mistress, they know their lines and what Ariel wants to hear.
Don't be scared. We represent someone who can help you. Someone who can make all your dreams come true.
Ursula loves them like dear pets, which is why there's some genuine anger and heartbreak in her grief when they're later killed. I also really like how she doesn't spend the whole film in her lair. When she starts seeing the holes in her scheme, she has the natural instinct to intervene, proving that she's willing to own up to the flaws in her villainy and is prepared to step in if necessary. The fact that she both takes on a human disguise using Ariel's voice and brainwashes Eric into falling for her is a good example of how she knows the evil plan's need contingencies, because anything could go wrong, and you can't count on just one idea alone to succeed. The Little Mermaid is also a musical, with lyrics by the late Howard Ashman and music by Alan Menken. Let's go through each one. Part of Your World is about Ariel's desire to be on land with the humans. It really captures the curiosity and enthusiasm Ariel holds for human culture.
I want to be where the people are. I want to see them dancing.
As well as her frustrations with her sea life.
Bright young women, sick of swimming.
It's the heart of Ariel's character, and Jodie Benson sings it with so much passion. Under the Sea is a calypso reggae song performed by Sebastian, in which the crab tries to convince the princess to appreciate the sea. It's infectiously catchy, full of inventive rhyming, and makes you want to dance. Sure, it's the antithesis of Part of Your World, but you can tell that Sebastian means what he's singing.
Under the sea, nobody beat us, fry us, and eat us in fricassee.
Poor Unfortunate Souls is Ursula's musical number, and like with any villain song, it's a blast. Each verse develops the backstory and intentions of Ursula, but it's also great at sounding both creepily sinister and entertainingly fun.
Come on, you poor unfortunate soul! Go ahead, make your choice!
It celebrates Ursula's unapologetic confidence in herself and lack of shame, while also seducing the naive Ariel into this witch's scheme. Les Poissons may seem like just a goofy filler number while Ariel is being welcomed into the palace, but it's also a lively way of addressing the dark side of humanity's relationship with sea life, which helps show the roots of Triton's fears.
Les poissons, les poissons. Aux écriveurs, I hack them in two.
Kiss the Girl is a super romantic number from Sebastian, designed to set a mood for Eric and Ariel. While its purpose is to inspire a moment of affection, it's also Sebastian in his comfort zone, letting him conduct music to his heart's content and croon a ballad of love with smooth confidence.
She don't got a lot to say, but there's something about her.
When it comes to this film's animation, most praise Ariel's character movement when she loses her voice. While the animation does excel in these scenes because it forces the animators to focus on alternative methods of visual communication, I don't think that means we should ignore the efforts put into dialogue-driven scenes. That same sense of creativity is shared in scenes where characters talk, with an emphasis on broad expressions or gestures to help aid what they're trying to say. So let's give credit where it's due. I also love the colour scheme in this film. It can be tricky to make a movie look colourful without it becoming garishly hard to look at, and The Little Mermaid finds the right colour choices that fit. The colours are so well thought out that even a dramatic change of lighting doesn't ruin anything. That is a sign of good art direction. Now, in spite of all my praise and defences, I have to admit that the film's third act is where things go downhill. Let me explain. After Ursula wins the day, she makes a deal with King Triton, Ariel's freedom for His Majesty's all-powerful trident, and he reluctantly agrees to the trade. Ursula not only grows in immense size, but also begins controlling the ocean, a unique power that gives her domination over the entire globe without having to leave her comforts of the water. However, as suspenseful as this confrontation is, and as much as I like Eric's eagerness to help save the merpeople, proving the good in humankind, the whole battle flies by quite quickly. Even though it's meant to be the final boss stage of this adventure, Ursula is defeated not long after gaining her power. It's certainly a very cinematic and visually ambitious hero versus villain finale, but it's also quite disappointing how short it is. After Ursula is taken down, Triton must confront his feelings about letting Ariel have her own sense of freedom, and Sebastian convinces him to let her live on land.
Well, it's like I always say, Your Majesty. Children got to be free to lead their own lives.
Now, I do think this is a sweet sentiment that shows how His Majesty has become less strict with his daughter, but as nice as this ending is, it doesn't give me the same feels that I used to have as a kid, because I now notice concerning details that go unchecked. Don't get me wrong, it's not a bad ending, it's just that a few things feel missing to me. Unresolved threads in character arcs that I simply can't ignore. For example, it's been established that Triton has violent temper issues, but he doesn't get a chance to demonstrate how he's improved on this dangerous impulse. Which does worry me when Ariel's sisters still live with their dad. Only Triton's willingness to let his kids have freedom has changed, not his anger management skills. Sure, we can hope for the best, but I don't think that something like this should be left to the imagination of the audience to resolve. So I would have appreciated an ending in which Triton gets to show self-control and patience while listening to one of his other daughters. Nothing too complicated, just a little something to assure us that Ariel's sisters will be safe. Ariel also doesn't get an opportunity to show that she's learned from her experience with Ursula. Yes, like I said, teenagers can make mistakes, that's realistic, but such a defense can only go so far if the movie doesn't end with Ariel growing from said wrong choice. So I would have also appreciated seeing Ariel's trust skills tested in the ending. Again, nothing complicated, just have Ariel meeting a shady salesman while living on land, but she now has the ability to see through his manipulative lies. Again, I'm not saying that this is a bad ending, it's just that there seems to be a lot of room for improvement. Now, yes, I know that Disney have plans to remake this film, but considering the studio's track record when it comes to their live-action remakes, I do not have much hope or faith. Disney live-action remakes have a very warped and misguided idea of what it takes to improve on a scene. Usually it comes with the baggage of a character over-explaining some kind of defense for why a scene is happening, which is the complete opposite of what I'm suggesting. To conclude, The Little Mermaid is an endearing Disney fairy tale movie about embracing the life you want deep down, and a lesson to parents about letting children have some sense of freedom of choice. It's very wholesome and really fun, plus features one of the best Disney villains ever. However, I do think that the third act is where the film goes south, because it rushes its final showdown with Ursula and leaves a couple character arcs unfinished, which makes for an anticlimactic conclusion after everything that's been developed, set up and established. As entertaining as it is, I don't think its overall quality matches the weight of its legacy. Like I said at the start of my review, it's good, but not great. So those are my thoughts on Disney's The Little Mermaid. What do you think of this movie? Let me know in the comment section below. If you'd like to make a Patron request review to me, just like April did, then you have to become a $10 plus patron on my Patreon. What is Patreon, you may be asking? Don't worry, I'll explain. This is my Patreon. It's a site for my fans to support me financially on through a monthly basis. Those who donate are called patrons. Patrons can donate as much as they want and are welcome to stop donating anytime. In return for their generosity, patrons are given exciting rewards based on their pledge amount. These rewards include early access to my videos before they go up publicly on YouTube, behind the scenes content, their name in the end credits of my videos, a chance to request a review of anything at all, and much more. Very excited for more Patron requests. Cheerio, folks.